Hey, what's up guys, John here. The rezoning of America's land has begun. Neighborhoods, schools, jurisdictions, townships, suburbs, big cities, everything is going to change because of all of these new rezoning regulations changes.
Developers are converting offices into apartments at a record rate.
Two new major projects are in the works downtown Houston, turning former offices into apartments.
Rebuild them and add housing.
And the massive amount of funding that's going into this, we're going to see a massive shift in housing in America. If you're an American, if you're a real estate investor, if you own a house or you're a renter, pay close attention to what's happening here, because this is going to be the greatest shift of wealth we've ever seen in this country. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to show you the facts. Please hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube will share this content to educate other people about what's really going on. I personally believe there's going to be a huge rug pull on real estate investors that aren't prepared for this. And if you want to fix your credit to position yourself for this great real estate wealth transfer, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free strategy session. Take a look at this. So, turning a tiny fraction of America's dead strip malls into housing could create 700,000 new apartments. Now, they reference this article here, this entity, Enterprise Community Partners. And I'm going to show you kind of how this whole thing connects. So, first, old or vacant strip malls offering a promising opportunity to create much needed housing. A new report found that converting just 10% of strip malls into housing could create 700,000 new homes. After finding the right site, the challenge is overcoming regulatory and financial hurdles, which is not, because the Biden administration already has the funding and the infrastructure in place that is going to make this seamless. You've likely heard the U.S. in the midst of a retail apocalypse. The rise of e-com has pushed big box stores into bankruptcy and helped create zombie malls across the country. It doesn't look like the trend will reverse anytime soon. At the same time, communities across the country are facing a housing affordability crisis driven by shortage of homes, urban planners, and developers across the country, and pushing a fix for both, converting strip malls into housing. Now, they say that this is all because of affordability, the affordability crisis. They say it's because of the retail apocalypse. I would say it's in large part due to inflation and very bad policies that have been implemented on the American people over the last couple of years that have really pushed people to the brink of financial ruin. And because of this, all the dominoes started, falling into place, whether it be high utility bills, high food prices, high insurance costs, high car prices. Everything has increased dramatically in price. This isn't just a natural chain of events. This situation was set up a couple of years ago, and now as we walk into this, a big problem, reaction, a new solution is going to be set. And this plan that's set is pretty unbelievable. So they say right here, if just 10% of vacant strip malls best suited for redevelopment were turned into housing, it create more than 700,000 homes. A new report from a nonprofit, Enterprise Community Partners, right? So you look at Enterprise Community Partners right here. And Enterprise Community Partners, I'll pull it down so you can see the URL to verify for yourself, enterprisecommunity.org, right? They say, in addition to the strong funding for annually appropriated spending accounts, the president also included an additional $50 billion in mandatory funding as part of an initiative to increase the housing supply. The funding proposal includes $35 billion for a new housing supply fund, a new mandatory program at HUD that would provide grants to the state and local housing financing agencies to their partners to invest in strategies to increase the supply of affordable housing, an additional $10 billion for housing credit for over a 10-year period, $5 billion in long-term mandatory funding for CDFI financing and new construction of substantial rehabilitation that creates new units of affordable rental and for sale housing. Now, if you go to the whitehouse.gov, and I'll pull this down so you can also see the URL, this came out about a month ago, And they state right here that it's going to be $35 billion in available lending capacity for transit-oriented development projects at below-market interest rates can be used for finance housing. So they're going to be given $35 billion. $35 billion for these converting commercial properties to residential. So if you are an investor, developer, and you have access to, distressed sellers, commercial property owners, and you can borrow money at interest rates below market and you're able to go in there with a competitive advantage when most of your competitors are wiped out. They were wiped out. The market, brought a lot of investors in, and a lot of investors aren't going to be able to hold on in the next couple of years. So what's going to happen? It's going to be a small pool of people that are going out there acquiring these distressed assets and converting these properties. And it's already starting. Look, Biden administration publishes guidelines to encourage commercial to residential conversions. The Biden administration is encouraging the conversion of empty office space to affordable housing, right? All month ago, they even state down here, this is $45 billion in federal funds to convert offices, right? So you're going to see an influx of this. You're already seeing this actually already hitting in California. So this isn't, something that might happen. It's already happening. The big housing victory of the 2022 California legislative session will finally take effect Saturday, June 1st, 2023, as I broke down when it passed. AB 2011 allows the plentiful parking lots and strip malls, which make up California's landscape, to be converted into 4 to 6 story multifamily housing, right? So this is what's happening. And it's very interesting how this all kind of works out. So they're declaring an initiative to tackle unsheltered homelessness. So what does this mean? They're going to push more and more and more housing regulations, which I believe is going to be problems for landlords to keep people housed. It's going to be harder to evict tenants for failure to pay and failure to comply with leases. But it's also going to push a lot more housing inventory in. They're going to be forced to increase supply dramatically. Here's a really good example of this. So they want to reduce homelessness 25% by 2025, which is pretty dramatic, right? How are you going to do that inside of, let's just call it a year and a half, right? How are you going to do that? Well, you're probably not, right? You're probably not going to do that realistically. So what's ultimately going to happen? They're going to push the goalpost, but radical changes are going to be coming in every 6 months, and it's going to keep going. And as this happens, maybe they hit this target by 2027, right? Maybe they hit it by 2028. But they're making these moves, and they're doing it in a pretty dramatic fashion. And the 6 places that they've already locked in: Chicago, Dallas, LA, Phoenix, Seattle, and the entire state of California, just for this specific initiative. Now this, adding the 700,000 homes, this is national, right? This is national. But these are the, 5, the 6, kind of pilot states. So look at what's going on here. And this is why I think we're going to start seeing a tsunami of distress across real estate, both residential and commercial. And it's going to present a massive opportunity for certain real estate investors to capitalize on this. So if you look at where rents are falling, rents are already falling. This is year over year, right? Down 7%, 6%, 5%, and all these areas that were, saw radical upswings in rent evaluations over the last couple of years, increases of 20, 30% in some cases. Now they're starting to drop, but you have to realize that a lot of these investors bought these properties based on these sky-high rents. So many people would say, hey, John, look, they jumped 20%, they jumped 30%. Who cares if they gave back 5% or 6% rent? Well, the investor that bought these properties, they bought them at that high valuation. They probably bought them at a 5% or a 6% return. So if they're losing 5 or 6% of their rent, that's a problem, especially when you consider the fact that commercial properties have to get refinanced. They have to go back to the bank every 3, 5, or 7 years, depending on the loan. And the bank is going to look at how much income this property is bringing in. What are their expenses? Insurance and taxes are going up. They're going to look at this. And what's ultimately going to happen? Well, they're probably going to start taking a lot of these buildings back because they're not going to be able to get the loans. And unless that investor can come to the table, and in many cases with millions of dollars, to keep the property, they're going to have to, do a voluntary, basically foreclosure. They're going to be given the keys back. And so this is a pretty big problem. And then let's mention here that 50-year high on apartment construction. So all of this is all leading towards rents falling, right? Rents are going to continue to fall, and it's going to be pretty interesting as $2.56 trillion of commercial property debt has to be refinanced over, let's just call it, the next 3 years, right? So commercial real estate in America is a $20 trillion market. $20 trillion market, 2.56 trillion of it, of all commercial properties. Think 5 units and above. Think industrial. Think office towers, right? All commercial property. 1 in 5 of these properties, or 1 in 10 of these properties, has to get refinanced over the next 3 years. It's going to be a bloodbath in commercial real estate, right? It's going to be an absolute bloodbath. And now we have to look at this huge caveat. that not many people are thinking about. People are thinking, hey, rents are $2,000, rents are $2,500, rents are $1,500, depending on your market, right? This is where rents are going to stay. And in a recession, generally what happens is people are going to be forced to rent, so rents are going to continue to rise. But let's hold that thought for a second, because a $2 trillion corporate debt wall is set for job losses in 2024. And they're saying, they're just going to see 5,000 job losses per month in 2024 and then 10,000 per month in 2025. But as that's happening, as we start to see, the job market go through a situation from the Great Resignation where everyone commanded 20 and 30% pay bumps to now they're just trying to hold a stable job or being forced to work two jobs, this situation is happening. You're seeing more and more and more Americans being pushed onto government assistance. 70 million Americans presently are on welfare, right? There are 70 million people, Social Security Administration welfare program in the United States in 2021. 70 million. You have to ask yourself, due to inflation, due to the high cost of living, if you're making $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, unfortunately, now that's almost welfare, right? Almost in that place. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was pretty good earning, right? You were a teacher somewhere making 60 grand a year. That was honest work. That was a great income in many cases, right? It was a strong job. But now 50 grand a year, you're making 4 grand a month, give or take. You're renting for $1,500. You got 3 grand left, hypothetically. $2,500 left to pay for insurance, your car, food, utilities. You pay for taxes. You pay everything. You're in the negatives, right? So what's going to happen? More people are going to be forced onto government assistance. More people are going to be forced onto it. And so when you look at the fact that 21% of the U.S. population is currently, as of 2021, on government assistance, you could say that number is probably going to increase, right? Probably, because that number was before inflation, before the craziness we experienced the last couple of years. So when we're looking at real wages falling, and we're looking at what's happening right now, as of the third quarter of 2022, the average American, held $101,915 in debt, according to Experian. Like, this isn't like some fly-by-night website like, oh, you know what, maybe it's from like xyz.com. No, Experian saying $101,000 is the average American's debt, right? Keep in mind that while this number might seem staggering, the average, some consumers carry more, some will carry less. Well, of course, that's the average. There's going to be some more, there's going to be some less. But $101,000. So when you're looking at this situation, they're saying for careers where workers will have to change jobs by 2030 due to AI and shifts in how we shop. McKinsey study said that 12 million Americans are going to need to switch jobs in the next 6 years, right? 6 years and change. So you're looking at this, and what I see is I'm seeing a situation where these rents are not going to be sustainable. A lot of people that own properties are looking at the rising cost of owning these properties, insurance, taxes. They're seeing their jobs change. They're seeing wages kind of soften. They're seeing the cost of the world increase. They're going to see more and more people try to rent out their homes, give the keys back to the bank, try to sell their properties if they have equity. We're walking into a massive real estate wealth transfer that's unfolding here, and I think a massive real estate opportunity because a lot of assets are going to get completely repriced over the next couple of years. So position yourself for this. Look at this here. I mean, they're saying the need for buildings and infrastructure will only intensify. By 2025, we will need to build 1 billion new homes. And I'm going to show you the sources here because it sounds pretty crazy, right? 1 billion new homes, about 60% of buildings that will exist by 2050 haven't been built yet. This means constructing a city the size of Stockholm or Milan every week until 2050, or a city the size of Singapore or New York every single month. So sources, you can look at, we'll look at funders and partners. You can see some really, really big names here. Let's see here. I mean, the UK government, right? Like you see IKEA, L'Oreal, Oak Foundation, you see George here. You're seeing all these really, really, really big names here. This isn't some fly-by-night, website, World Bank. I mean, you're even seeing some really, and these are the cities. So it's not just America, just to clarify, because America only has a population of 330 million. So 1 billion houses, that's ridiculous. But on a worldwide stage, 1 billion houses, and they're saying we have about 8 billion people in the world. It's pretty substantial to add 1 billion houses if that's the goal. Are they going to achieve it? No, probably not, right? But they're moving in that direction. They're going to be increasing housing supply dramatically. And so supply and demand. You add supply and demand, determine prices. Prices are going to come down. Real wages are going to be coming down. We're likely going to walk into a situation where we're going to see inflation over the next year or so, but then as probably even more, maybe 2 years, 3 years. But then we're going to be walking into deflation as wages really start to soften and we begin to see more of this technological revolution, this fourth industrial revolution unfold. It's going to be a complete game changer for the U.S. economy. Position yourself for it. The next couple of years, I believe, are going to be a dramatic wealth transfer and a massive opportunity. Drop below, we'll have a conversation about it. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free strategy session. I'll catch you in the next one.